Send her a message.
Ready? All right, good morning, everyone. Excuse me, I'm Rob Pitts. I chair the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County. Today is Friday, February 4th, 2022. It's a little after 10 o'clock this morning. This is a special call meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County, distinguished mayors of Fulton County. Madam Clerk, please call the roll of the Board of Commissioners.
Chairman Rob Pitts.
Present.
Commissioner Liz Hausman.
Present.
Commissioner Bob Ellis.
Present.
Commissioner Lee Morris.
Present.
Commissioner Natalie Hall. Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. Commissioner Khadijah Abdul Rahman. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you also call the roll of the mayors so we know who's on?
Yes. City of Alpharetta, Mayor Gilbin.
Present.
City of Atlanta, Mayor Dickens.
Present.
Chattahoochee Hills, Mayor Reed.
Present.
College Park, Mayor Motley Broom.
Present.
East Point, Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Here.
Fairburn, Mayor Avery.
Present.
Hateville, Mayor Hallman. Johns Creek, Mayor Bradbury. Milton, Mayor Jameson.
Present.
Mountain Park, Mayor Steele.
Present.
Palmetto, Mayor Bodie. Roswell, Mayor Wilson. Sandy Springs, Mayor Paul.
Present.
South Fulton, Mayor Khalid. Union City, Mayor Williams.
Present.
Madam Clerk, there was a technical issue that I think prevented Commissioner Arrington to speak, but I believe he is on the line and may be able to speak now.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm here and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, the agenda, printed agenda, you should all have a copy of that. Then we will proceed with the agenda as it's printed. First item will be a COVID-19 update. Mr. Mann.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and just briefly before we get into this agenda, good morning, first of all, to the commissioners and the mayors. Just a brief update from Public Works on real-time issues. One is the heavy rain event that we're having, as you can see, that always has the potential for impact. Most specifically, Big Creek is projected to go above flood stage. It's at 6.2 feet now. Flood stage is 9 feet, is 7 feet, and it's projected to be 9 feet Saturday morning. However, all of our water treatment plants are working very effectively, most notably the 38 million gallons a day at Big Creek, but also 13 at JCEC, 1.1 River, and 8 that we are now able to transmit to Cobb on a per day basis, as well as the 24 at Camp Creek. So the innovative work that we've done on both our lines and manhole remediation, which by the way has received some national attention, gives us the pretty good confidence that we will not see any sewer spills this weekend. So we hope that's good news for you and for all of us. Also on T-SPLOST, quickly, as you recall in the last meeting, it's an IGA requirement, not statutory, but in the agreement that we'll all have a citizen rep. We'd like to get that as soon as possible. I think we requested it end of last month. Majority of the cities have not yet done that. I'm sure you can do it. And if you could do it in February, that would be most appreciated. To the agenda, COVID-19 update. We have both Matt Kallmeyer and Doug Schuster from EMSI on the line with us, and they'll take us through both the improving trends, our vaccination and testing plans, as well as we can discuss where we are on home test kits, where we do have still some supply chain issues to work our way through. So Matt and Doug, will turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, do you want to acknowledge a few other people that did check in while the county manager was speaking?
We have them.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. The moderator could go ahead and move forward in the slide deck, please. Thank you. Doug, let's go ahead and please start. All right, Doug Schuster is on mute. Hopefully he can get himself off mute. If not, I will go ahead and jump in.
I got it. Good. I'm sorry. Good morning, mayors and commissioners. While the metrics that we track are still at dangerously high levels, the trends are starting to point in the right direction. So this is a little bit of a more encouraging presentation here today. Our 7-day averages for hospitalizations, percent positives, and cases are now slowly trending downward, but we're still above pre-Omicron highs. The new data from the CDC does show that all samples submitted are 100% of Omicron variant. So anybody that has COVID right now has the Omicron variant. 45% of all new cases are from unvaccinated people. 91% of hospitalizations are from unvaccinated individuals. And 96% of all new deaths are from the unvaccinated population. Since the last Board of Commissioners meeting, and sadly in the 2 days since that, we've added 15 to this total, which would take us to 53 people have perished with COVID complications in the last 16 days. Fulton County Hospital bed availability continues to be at its lowest level since the start of the pandemic. And CDC mask guidance now has us at 6.5 times the recommended case average. 3 of the major indicators on our scorecard are red: percent positive cases and hospitalizations, though they are trending downward, and 1 is yellow: deaths, which is trending upwards. Next slide. So in 1 week's time, the good news is we had a 1 week bump 2 weeks ago where we had a little bit of a mini surge due to various reasons, but we have now started trending downward again. So in 1 week's time, our 7-day average from cases has dropped from 1,212 to 718 in Fulton County. The state dropped from 13,900 to 9,000 cases for a 7-day average. The United States pretty significantly dropped from 652 to 424,000. Those numbers are still astronomically high. As you look at the heat maps from 1 week ago to the second, you see a bit of lightning, but anything that's red or orange is still highly transmissible. So really still a very sick situation when it comes to COVID transmissibility. Next slide. Kind of the bad news story, which I alluded to earlier, is we are now at 3.9 on a 7-day average for deaths. This is the lagging indicator finally catching up. All these deaths are COVID Omicron variant deaths. And as you can see, like I said, it's the second highest 7-day average we've had since the start of the pandemic. and people can still die, especially if you're unvaccinated, if you get Omicron. Georgia had a rise too from 59 to 67 for a 7-day average. And U.S. deaths also spiked from 2,300 to 2,636. So due to the high surges over the holidays in the first week of the year, you're starting to see the death toll. Next slide. This is what I talked about earlier. We are 645 cases per 100,000 for a 7-day period of time. That puts us 6.5 times well into the high transmission rate. To get down to the no masking guidance, you have to be below 50. And so we've got a ways to go. Also, we're at 14.35% positives, and we need to get below 8% to get into moderate transmission. So once again, while the numbers are trending downward and much better than we were last time we met, they are still a very dangerous category. Next slide. A little bit of just to show you kind of cases and deaths by month in Fulton County. A very interesting fact, over 1/3 of all of Fulton County's cases have come in the last 2 months, December and January. So very high rise in cases. You're starting to see kind of the spike in deaths related to those cases, but not near as high as our past totals. I don't think that vaccination is getting enough credit in the news media for this. It is definitely one of the reasons, because we have such a high vaccinated population in the county. It has led to lower death rates because most of the people that are dying are unvaccinated. And so I think you can draw that correlation. Next slide. And then lastly, we kind of keep a scorecard with metrics, and red is obviously the worst and green is better. Our goal is ultimately to get to the blue, but while we are doing very well in testing capacity and demand, it is leveled off. And our testing results can be gotten in most cases around 24 hours, which is in the green. Our cases have dropped fairly significantly in the last week. Our positivity rate, remember our goal is to be below 5% for green, and we're 3 times that amount at 15.7, but it is dropping. Hospitalization census is dropping, but I want to pay particular attention to hospital bed availability. Those numbers are dangerously low. We have not had a day of more than 10% since December 30th. And hospital critical care bed availability has been stable. Our vent availability has always been good in the county, but it's also stable. Our death toll is rising, sadly. Our morgue census is plateauing at a very high level, the highest since the beginning of the pandemic. And our vaccine demand is dropping. Next slide. Matt?
Thank you. Appreciate that, Doug. Just want to make sure everyone is aware over 535,000 first and second doses have been administered by our unified team with the Board of Health, as well as over 12,000 boosters. We are looking at over 41,000 vaccines have been administered by our Fulton County Mobile Vaccination Unit. And the beautiful thing about that is that we're continuing to strive to push those trucks into areas that have low vaccine uptake. We can proudly say that over 80% of individuals that have received the vaccine from that program are individuals of color. And we're continuing to find other ways to be able to go ahead and be successful with that. One of the things that we have done that has shown great success is we are vaccinating at public school basketball games. We have a partnership with Atlanta Public Schools. We have had 2 successful basketball games with over 50 at one and 70 at another individuals that receive vaccinations. We just actually had our check-in meeting with all of our partners today, and APS said that they're seeing a lot of the seniors that are actually coming to these events getting vaccinated and taking advantage of an incentive program that not only we're doing, but also a supplemental incentive program by Atlanta Public Schools. So we have extended this similar offer to Fulton County Public Schools, and they're looking at it within their program to see if that is something that they would like to participate with. We are bringing back incentives. We're switching to an electronic version of an incentive card as opposed to a hard card that's handed to someone. Reason being is when we have mobile trucks out and about, we don't have security there to protect them if they're holding a large amount of cash in the form of cards. It does pose a safety issue, as one can imagine. So what we want to do is make sure that we have an electronic process, and we are actually have signed a contract with someone to be able to go ahead and administer that for us. And we are getting really close to implementing that within the next week or so. We did speak about Pfizer. Once again, it is approved for everyone 12 and older. They are getting prepared to do the FDA and CDC approval for that 6-month to 4-year-old group for the first and second doses. You'll see that you'll start to see, a change in name for both the Pfizer as well as the Moderna vaccine. They're going to be, I guess you could say, moving to more of a brand name with that. Moderna was approved this week for 18 and older, officially full approval, and they'll start marketing it as SpikeVax going forward. And we've talked about this before. We cannot stress enough. Doug has showed you all some statistics, as well as we have other things that we push out in their EPI reports that showcases the 25 times more protective. It is incredible to see when you looked at this last peak with Omicron, the amount of individuals that were not vaccinated, fully vaccinated, that were not up to date, produce a significant amount of individuals that were positive during this response, especially individuals that were not vaccinated at all. So we cannot stress enough the importance of getting a booster as well as that first and second dose. Next slide, please. Just a quick show, just to show you where our teams are and what we're doing. And it did refer to this before. Over 80% of the individuals that we are vaccinating with our mobile effort are individuals of color, as well as the events that we had at Terrell High School and other APS high school that showed significant response with our mobile vaccine program. Next slide, please. Want to make sure that we continue to let individuals know that testing is available throughout the community. They have a total of 5 locations that people can take advantage of within our jurisdiction. You'll have the Morgan Falls location, Mercedes-Benz, the 2 newer ones. That's where we're highlighting it up there, as well as the fact that we have added mobile vaccine to our Home Depot backyard location. So we have switched one of the lanes at that testing site to offer vaccination. We're using our mobile vaccination team there to accomplish that. They will actually keep the same hours as our testing folks at that location. So it provides another opportunity for folks, if they're out and about, just have that whim, drive on by Home Depot backyard, take advantage of our mobile vaccination effort there, and get that necessary vaccine to go ahead and help you. If not, the 3 other sites that we've traditionally have are still available, and we actually have the URL listed at the bottom of this screen where individuals can find the hours of all our locations. Next slide, please.
Let me correct something. 620 Morgan Falls is in Sandy Springs, Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I'll make sure that is updated.
Let's not make that mistake again if you want to continue to use that site.
Yes, sir. I understand, sir. My apologies. Thank you once again. Dr. Rochelle, would you like to go ahead and step in here?
Good morning. Today, I would like to provide an update on the county's at-home COVID test kit strategy. The key assumptions have shifted. As you may have seen and heard, there is expanded access to test kits. Demand overall has waned, and as we've heard today, the positivity rates have trended downward. As for expanded access, the federal government has opened its ordering system. Residents can order 4 test kits per address, as well as private insurance is also offering to pay for over-the-counter test kits, 8 per person per month. Released yesterday is a continued expanded access for Medicare recipients. They will be able to have test kits covered by Medicare starting in the spring. Nevertheless, the county will supplement this expanded access and continue to provide or move forward with our test kit strategy. As the county manager indicated, we have been experiencing supply chain issues We have received a small portion of the over 100,000 test kits that we've ordered. However, we will move forward on a rolling basis with the distribution of the test kits. The first tranche of test kits will go to CSP partners that are in communities that have, or serve communities that have low vaccination rates and high positivity rates. We'll then roll the distribution to our library system with access points at 15 libraries across Fulton County. We'll then roll to providing test kits to our employees. That concludes the update on the test kits, Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Rochelle. I appreciate that. Mr. Manager and Chairman, we'll turn it back to you for any questions or concerns.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kalmar. I think first hand, Mayor Kamu. Is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mayor Khalid is fine. My last name is actually Kamau, but Mayor Khalid is easier. Thank you so much for recognizing me, Chairman Pitts. I had a couple of quick questions. I'm sorry I missed the first few minutes, but my first question was the M95 masks that are coming out for free from the federal government. Some sites that I have seen have listed partners in particular regions of the country. I've seen Walgreens, I think in Rite Aid. Do we know what partners they will be using to distribute those masks in Fulton County?
Mayor Khalid, I believe it is some similar partners that you have seen on the federal website as well as Kroger. We did have confirmation that by the end of this week, most of the Kroger pharmacies were supposed to have that in place. We do not have control over that program. Once again, as a federal program with partners that they have chosen, but we will try to get more information to share that with the mayors as soon as we can, sir.
Awesome. And if you could type that link in the chat, that would be great. My second question is, and forgive me, I have heard this. Well, let me start with this. Was there a single slide that showed morbidity in vaccinated versus unvaccinated persons?
We did not have that in that slide deck, sir. That is definitely something we can provide to you.
I've asked for this before. I'm going to ask again. Please, please, please get that out.
It is in the slide deck. It is in the slide deck. And just so you know, Mayor, it is 4% vaccinated are breakthrough cases for morbidity. Of those 4%, 95% of those are over the age of 80 years old. So only 4% are breakthrough cases for COVID-related deaths.
All right. Thank you so much. I don't think that there's anything more convincing than that. So I'm going to be looking for that slide again and putting it out. And then lastly, I have heard, and I'm sorry, I don't want to interject rumor, but I want to dispel this is because this is something that I've heard a lot around the difference between the antigen tests and the PCR tests, and that people are testing positive longer in the PCR tests. And the rationale that I have heard, which was not from any scientist, I want to say that again, was that the antigen tests only test for live virus, where the PCR tests might test for dead virus or whatever. And that is why people are testing positive longer with those tests versus the rapid tests. Is there anyone that could speak to that and maybe explain that science?
I believe Dr. Paxson did speak about that in one of our previous meetings. Of course, anything that is used for the antigen home test kits is to allow folks to quickly determine if they wake up with signs and symptoms, or throughout the day, if they start having signs and symptoms that would be associated with COVID, to just quickly pop out a test to make that determination should they change their activities in a social type of environment. And then from there, follow the guidelines that the CDC has to that end. Still, PCR is considered the gold standard in all testing models. That's why we make sure that we have ample PCR testing sites throughout our jurisdiction for people to do that, as well as, of course, some businesses are requiring that, as well as travel internationally is requiring a PCR-based test in order to do that as well. So there is the PCR test does pick up virus a lot longer in an individual after they're no longer actually contagious. I think there's ample literature to go ahead and attest to that fact. So once again, follow the CDC guidance when it comes to returning to work. And I think that would be the easiest thing for individuals to go along with at this time.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr.
Those are all my questions.
Mayor Paul?
My question deals with home testing. Is there any concern that we're underreporting based on these new home tests, that people are taking tests at home, testing positive, and then no information getting to the public health folks to measure the statistics? I can tell you that when I got COVID over the holidays and my family, we all did the at-home tests, and I talked to my my fire department, let them know I had it, but we had 3 other people that probably weren't traced. So the question is how do are there algorithms? Are there other measures we're trying to figure out who is testing at home and not necessarily being caught in the statistics?
Great question, Mr. Mayor Paul. Actually, that is a concern across the federal government. There is no particular way for individuals to report their test results from a home test kit. It is something that I believe, at least in Georgia, they would like to try to address as time goes along. Currently, they do not have a plan in place to be able to capture that data. There is, in some of your home test kits, you will find some recommendations that if you do test positive, please notify your local health department as to your status so they can follow up. Based upon the percent positives that we were seeing in the 30% range, it would be very difficult for our epidemiology team to actually achieve any contact tracing and successfully stop the spread of the virus because it was so prevalent. 1 in every 3 individuals, of course, had COVID at the time. Once we start getting our numbers back around the 10 to 8% range, a true strong process that our epi team has for contact tracing will make a significant impact in our community. So they are continuing to do what they can. They actually, I believe, if I remember my numbers correctly, anywhere between 200 and 400 individuals a day they're reaching out to ensure that they're checking on their status and hopefully trying to stem the tide of the spread of it. But once again, at our current percent positive rate, is very difficult for them to be successful. So yes, we are seeing a significant underreporting. The numbers could have been much higher during the peak, especially if individuals were taking advantage of the home test kits.
But just to add real quickly to that the home test kits would help you isolate and do your own contact tracing and prevent the spread. But the metrics that we can track are hospitalizations and how they progress through the hospital system, which gives us a really good idea of where we are in the pandemic, and the percent positives that we get through PCR testing can be applied to the general population. So I will tell you that talked to the CDC representative yesterday shortly, and it's something that you talk about an algorithm, they're looking at coming up with some way to get a better grasp of this. But right now, like Matt said, it's a very hard, nebulous thing to get.
Mayors at this point, commissioners. All right, continue, Madam, Mr. Manager.
Morning. Good morning.
Commissioner Hall.
Yes, I'm sorry, it took me a minute to unmute, but I just want, I don't see Dr. Paxton on here. Is she actually on the Zoom or?
Not today, ma'am. She is not.
She had another meeting.
Okay, well, I wanted her to speak to long COVID. We discussed that at the BOC meeting. I read the article that was related to CBS News report about long COVID being finally realized as part of the reason that we're having staff shortages. It was said that, initially we just owed it all to the great resignation where employees are leaving their jobs. But now we have enough data to know that long COVID has caused a lot of issues with chronic illness after people catch COVID-19, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, and that the symptoms have even bedridden people. And so I wanted, well, Matt, do you have information that you can share with everybody on that? Or do we need to do this the next meeting with Dr. Paxton?
I think it'd always be best to hear from a district health director for the final say on this. We've had conversations to this end, though. We don't have statistics, actually, what portion of the population has been seeing symptoms that would be associated with long COVID, as what is being termed out there. Individuals that were infected are starting to see problems that actually are vascular in nature, pulmonary in nature, as well as cardiovascular in nature. And it's very difficult. Some of these individuals are having disabilities because of that. I know we're seeing some folks on our team that have been out on FMLA due to COVID and some of the results of actually sustaining that virus and successfully recovering from it. However, having symptoms that are extending for a quite long period of time, some of those individuals are no longer able to do the job that they were actually in prior to that. And we have to look for other opportunities for them within the organization. So it is a real thing. I think Dr. Paxton did cover that, and it's something that at least I know that the teaching hospitals in our jurisdiction are spinning up teams to go ahead and address this concern and work with the patient population and figure out how best to help them as we continue to navigate these uncharted waters.
Because as I stated at our Board of Commissioners meeting, I've been getting calls and text messages and Instagram DMs, Facebook messages from people who are vaccinated saying that they're having issues after catching COVID and, you know, then negative and months later. Can you mute, Miss? Okay, thank you. So they've said that they are experiencing these symptoms long after they have tested negative after, you know, having COVID. And so I started reading up on it and found out about long COVID, and then started noticing on social media people taking pictures of themselves bedridden, saying that, you know, they have these symptoms that have come back, but they're testing negative. So if we could have Dr. Paxton come on to the next meeting and just give us an update on that, that would be great. And thank you, Matt, for the information that you just shared.
Yes, ma'am. I'll make sure Dr. Paxton is aware.
All right, anyone else at this time? Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. The next subject is our poll worker recruitment plan. Just briefly, as you may know, we are transforming the way that we're doing or really election staffing. I'll say it more broadly. We're putting in place a volunteer coordinator for citizens that want to volunteer in certain positions and stay for longer periods of time. That will be available. We're also establishing limited time employment positions. There will probably be 50 to 100 of those. And we're using or will be using a variety of temporary agencies to staff for other positions beyond the poll day. But specifically, what was on the agenda today is poll day recruitment. And that also, I think, has some transformational opportunities within it, specifically at the city level and with your assistance, which we're very grateful for that. And Patrick Estridge, our deputy director for the BRE, and Nadine Williams have been leading that effort. And I think Patrick is here to overview that with you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Happy New Year, mayors. If we can go to the next slide, please. And the preceding next slide. So we wanted to start kind of big picture and present the overall needs for the election cycles for May and November. So this will give you a picture of what we will be recruiting for. We will have 251 voting These are, again, election day voting precincts, just over 2,800 poll workers in total. We also have positions that we, as the county manager included, will be moved to volunteer positions. So as the request is for individuals that are interested in your respective locales, they can, if they have the time and are willing, also apply to be put in these volunteer positions. And the other positions, as it pertains to advanced voting, will be recruited through the workings of staff agencies. Next slide, please. So we started off big picture. We wanted to get somewhat granular to provide the breakdown and the needs for each respective city and locale. So this will be more pertinent to each mayor themselves. And as you can review, you can see the positions needed for each city and then the overall total that we will be looking to recruit, in each respective city. Next slide. We'll be working with external affairs to do advertising through print, social media, collateral, different natures. And this is an example of a piece of the advertisement that we will use to for these recruiting efforts. Next slide, please. And so the next steps, what will happen is we will continue to identify presented, we provided the numbers needed for each municipality or city. We will continue to reach out, and also at the request of each mayor, if you have an appointed authority within your city, to contact us to establish that partnership and begin to working towards this recruitment effort. And what we're doing is working with those identified individuals to set up recruitment fairs where we will come out to your respective city and host a event that all interested individuals for poll workers can come. They can apply. They can be input into the system and assigned all in one. So somewhat of a one-stop shop is the idea. And then lastly, for all those individuals, for the questions and inquiries that you all do receive, we're asking that you would point them in the direction to the department. They can go ahead and apply through the county website. And at that point, that will start the initial recruitment, and we'll get them processed through the application, input through our regional coordinators and assigned. Next slide, please. We'll open the floor up for questions, as I see there are many.
Okay, so I have a lineup here, but I have only received at the latest count, only names of 10 or 12 from Mayor Avery from Fairburn. Is the only one who's responded so far to my office with specific names. So we need your assistance. So the lineup is as follows: Commissioner Houseman, Mayor Jameson, Mayor Holiday Ingram, and Mayor Motley Broom. Commissioner Houseman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good to see you, all the mayors on today. I just want to share with you some of the feedback that I have received on our effort to get these workers in the system and trained, and specifically with our efforts to have them come through our cities. I think that there's been a lot of questions that the mayors would like to have in this process about exactly what positions are being asked for, what's required of the folks that are interested. And then if there's a central way for them to submit those names so they can track them, because, you know, we continually hear that people try and get in the system and they're not called back or whatever. So in order to have some way to make sure that folks are actually being contacted if they come from an individual city, I think would be greatly appreciated by the mayors that have reached out to me. And then, you know, these positions, I saw the list a minute ago, and it's really unclear, especially in the area of early voting. if folks are allowed to work maybe 3 days a week versus 6 days a week, if there's a way to be flexible in that, I think we would have a lot more participation by community members. There's a lot of interest in, who's doing the working for the counting process. So I think that's another question that I've been asked that I'm not sure I have the answer for. So those are the kind of things that I'm hearing, and I'd appreciate some feedback on those. But specifically, the most important that I've heard from several mayors is just to make sure that if they refer someone, how do they do that? And how is it tracked to make sure that that person was at least contacted to be interviewed for potentially helping us with the elections.
Patrick should. Patrick.
Am I able?
Yeah, go ahead,
Thank
Patrick.
Yes, ma'am. So I believe that, again, the first step when you all have individuals that are interested in the election day poll workers, and again, we can provide, as we communicate with each city, we can provide the listing of those positions so that you all can have them to refer to just in hand. But if you will first refer them to the application on the county website, and I think the next step, you can then provide those lists of names to the department so that we can provide them to the coordinators to ensure that they have received the application and to ensure that we are then reaching out to them and touching each person that you all have provided. As far as the advanced voting, what we can do, again, those positions will be recruited through the source of temp agencies. And what we can do is work with the temp agencies to ensure that each applications are being tracked. Again, we can, if we could get the list of names from you all, we can provide that then to the temp agency in order to ensure that we are then reaching up and making sure that there is a follow-up.
So Patrick, I'm not sure. Can I just stop you right there? I'm not sure if that's clear. I mean, we're telling people to be referred to the website for them to sign up, but then you're also saying that the cities can provide lists of names. So I just don't think it's really clear on how the cities are to provide those names. If it's once a week, twice a week, is it individual basis, and how it's going to be tracked. So I'm not expecting you really to have that answer right this second, but I think you need to put together something to send to the cities, send to the commissioners, so we all understand exactly what the process is going to look like. So there's not any questions out there about who's doing what and how these folks are being contacted.
Yes, ma'am, understood.
Thank you.
May I also make a comment, Commissioner Hausman? We have reached out to the city clerks for all cities to ask them if they have residents that they want to refer. So we will work off that list to make sure that those people get assigned when we get a response. And we also are, just to let you know, that we are looking through all of the poll workers that currently have experience and have already worked. And for instance, City of Alpharetta, we will make sure that all the voters that are working advanced voting are residents of that city. So we're replacing people, moving them around who have experience and placing them, if they want to work in the city where they reside, to put those at those locations. And we'll actually provide that list to the cities if they're interested in seeing that list.
Good, thank you.
All right, Mayor Jameson.
Yes, sir, thank you. Can you please confirm Milton's numbers? I noticed that Milton and Roswell had the exact same numbers, and I think we had 100 more than the city of Alpharetta. And I just wanted just to confirm those numbers.
We would have to go back to that slide. I'm not sure if Patrick's microphone is working.
Trying to find the particular slide. The total that we have projected for Milton, sir, is 234. If preferable or request that what we can do is provide each respective city their list and breakdown, if that would be a preference.
Yes, I would appreciate that. It just looked like it almost was a copy and paste kind of error. But if it was the exact same as Roswell, then I'll trust your numbers and go back with our city clerk and determine how many numbers we will need.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Yes, good morning. I have a number of concerns. If we can go back to the slide that had the May election and November election side by side. My question is, as we're doing that, in the past, how have poll workers been recruited, and has it been 100% volunteer? Not that one, the one before that. So of the 2,786 poll workers needed and the 50 reserve poll workers, which of these are you only focusing on volunteer recruitment?
So the indication is for the volunteer positions that we have identified will be the line monitor, be that for.
I'm sorry, you're going in and out, so I couldn't really make out what you just said.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can. It's better now.
Okay. So from this slide, the positions that have been identified for volunteer positions are those line monitor positions, which is roughly 45, and that is for those specific precincts that will require line monitors. Those are the typically larger precincts. Will need an individual to assist in that process for the line outside. So those are those voluntary positions. So again, if you all have identified people that are leaning towards the volunteer side, it would be in that position.
And how will
we have?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go.
Positions will be staffed by temp agencies, or I'm a little confused about the expectation of a list of names coming from cities. So I'm trying to figure out, one, which positions we're talking about and how the county is staffing elections to make sure we have fair elections. So that's why I'm asking, which of these will volunteers be used for?
You said which will be used for volunteers?
You said the line monitors are like what security, reserve poll workers, are volunteers being used for those positions as well?
Let me make clear that the volunteers are people that will be unpaid. We are reaching out to people if they want to be line greeters, to come into the poll, line monitors, and exit line monitors as well. Well, we'll start a marketing campaign with the recruitment fairs, and we reached out to each city to see if they're interested in recruitment fairs in regards to that. But the majority of the other positions listed here are paid positions. I'm trying to make sure we're clear that are you asking for the unpaid positions or for the paid positions?
Both.
Okay, so pretty much in regards to recruitment, we're going to be reaching out to all the cities. We've done that already and send out emails to the city clerks for lists. We're actually reaching out to our polling sites that we actually utilize to see if they have members of the congregation or staff persons that want to actually be poll workers in those facilities. We reached out to Fulton County employees to also sign up. And we're going to have recruitment fairs virtually and in person for any city that's interested. And we've already heard back from 3 cities that are interested in doing so.
Okay, and so I responded to someone that indicated I'd be willing to host co-host recruitment efforts. So with Senate Bill 202, questions coming from people in the community about county legislatures, across this country, there's legislation being introduced in different states to allow the state legislature to reject election results. I'm a little concerned about the level, so what will be the level of training, and why are we saying for cities to submit lists when there is an online link where everyone would have the same information about how to become a poll worker or get one of these paid or unpaid positions. So I'm a little confused about the expectation and the indication that only one city has submitted a list of names versus if we're co-hosting recruitments and people reach out to the county through that link or whatever other process so that it is streamlined and we're not having double efforts around not knowing how many people have submitted online versus how many people we might have on a list, as well as the total number of volunteers that are needed.
Well, let me say this, for SB 202, it allows anyone who lives in 10 adjacent counties to work as poll workers. So there's no way we can 100% say, okay, only citizens of this particular city are permitted to work in these precincts, because you are permitted to work in any of we're surrounded by 10 adjacent counties and we're allowed to recruit from any of those counties for those people to work. But what we're trying to do is give the residents of the cities first preference to work in those in their precincts. But we're trying to streamline it now to make it a one-stop shop on our website. So all of those names come in through the website link and application, and it will also get all the information from the cities if they want to. Since this is a new process, we're trying to streamline it, not new process, but we're trying to streamline it. We're asking for city clerks to give us the names up front if they have any people that want to work, that we can give them first preference to. But like I said, we are permitted to recruit from all 10 counties that surround us.
Okay, that's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Motley Brew.
Thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. Can we go to the, it looks like there was a flyer prepared and it had dollar amounts for, yes, okay, that one. So am I to understand that the pay for this is, for an assistant manager, is from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. about $11 an hour?
That is correct. If you break it down per hour, we are attempting to increase the amount starting with the November election. But that goes, we have to get BOC approval for that, but we will be presenting that to the board for the November election to increase the amount. But currently, these are the rates. The poll manager rate is not listed on there. It should be $275. But that is currently the rates it's a flat rate for the entire day.
Sure, but I mean, that's 17 hours, is that right? Right, okay, so even the manager is getting $16 an hour. I'm extraordinarily troubled by these rates. If we want the best people doing this work and coming out to make our elections ones that we can all be confident in, given all of the concerns that people have had and tried to raise, I have no idea why the Board of Commissioners is not pushing for higher pay for these folks, because I think I can probably walk out of my house and hit 3 or 4 places along Main Street that'll pay you more than $11 an hour. And I think this has to be a priority for the board to try to make sure that we are recruiting people who are going to be engaged in this process and serious about making sure that these elections run smoothly. And I don't think that we can wait till November to make that happen. I think it's got to happen for the May general primary as well.
And we agree with you that we want to increase the rates. Right now, it actually, unfortunately, I agree it is low, but it is comparable to the surrounding counties that also have election, all the surrounding counties around us. It's in the same pay rate. We're hoping people do this more for civic duty, but we do plan to increase the rates, but just be aware that we do have budget constraints. And this, we have over 257 sites and over 3,000 people. And as we increase the rates, the budget also gets increased. So we have constraints for that.
Understood that there are
increase the rates.
I understand that there are budget constraints, but the scrutiny on Fulton County for these elections coming up will be intense. And everywhere you go, we've got trouble recruiting and retaining workers. I mean, there are some people who are going to say, I'm not getting out of bed for $11 an hour. Like, it doesn't make sense. And so I understand that there are budgetary constraints. I also understand that there are ways to make things work. I would ask that the Board of Commissioners revisit this prior to the May election.
Mayor Khalid. Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you so much. I was having trouble unmuting myself. I want to echo Mayor Broom's concerns and just ask, I thought Fulton County had passed a resolution to pay all of their workers $15 an hour minimum. Am I incorrect in that?
Well, I'm just answering, that's for full-time employees. Again, these are election day, generally civic duty oriented positions.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. That brings me actually to my second question. So we have volunteers, part-time employees, and temporary workers for these election day activities. Are these people being hired and supervised through Happy Faces?
Nadine, you can answer that, or I can. The answer is no.
Okay.
Happy Faces is one of the temporary firms that we will be using, but we are going to use as many, quite frankly, as we can get a legitimate response from to diversify the temporary services firms that we would employ.
Okay. I'm sorry, someone else had another response.
Yes. Just to let you know that our election day workers do not come through a temp agency, and no temp agency trains on any level for any position. That is done by our county employees, but for the election day workers, they do not come through a temp agency.
Okay, thank you. My final question is, again, in this same vein. I know at the first January meeting, there was a lot of concern expressed about temporary and part-time workers, and there were several requests to have either the county or the Board of Elections bring back a staffing plan, full-time workers for all of the election activities. I just an update about staffing plans that are going to be coming to a future BOC meeting.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So in response to the staffing plan that you're referring to, and we have been, that is in the works within the department. Again, I think what was presented today was to clarify and kind of provide the information to the mayors to run in line with the request to assist with the election day poll officials recruitment. And so that the answer is yes, sir. We have began to work on a staffing plan to again align and address those concerns that came out of the Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. First, let me, and I should have started with this. I applaud you all on this program and this flyer. I think that this is excellent. But again, to echo Mayor Broom and other people who've spoken, we are, the county is going to be under intense scrutiny for this election. And I think bringing that staffing plan back as soon as possible will be very helpful. And I expect that the expense to do this with full-time workers year round will probably be great. But even having that number in that proposal, I think will bolster the plan that we have, or that you all have for us right now. People will understand it's so much better, this volunteer and part-time program, when they also understand that the cost to taxpayers for full-time year-round staffing might be more than we can afford at this moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Motley Broom, for raising the issue about the pay. That is exactly why I raised my hand. Although surrounding counties' rates are the same, I believe that Fulton County has always been a leader when it comes to our involvement in making a positive impact in our communities, and that we do need to take a look at this, and we need to take a look at it soon. I believe it was our own Chief Human Resources Officer who mentioned to me one day when I asked how he was doing and his family was doing, and he was so proud of his son. And he said, my son got a job offer from Chick-fil-A, but it was very concerning to me. And I said, why? And he said, because they're going to pay him about $16 an hour. And I said, to do what? He said, just to package up Chick-fil-A sandwiches and, do the order taking. And I said, we have employees who don't even make $16 an hour. And so we definitely need to look at this pay. And I would also say that we need to be a little more clear on the flyer. It needs to say whether this is per day or the entire duration of their time as a poll worker. And I heard, I think it was Nadine, state that the poll manager was not on the flyer, which pays about $275. The flyer should be updated with that information as well. But absolutely, I agree. We need to look at this pay, because if we want people to come out, and we already are all experiencing the great resignation, and one of the top reasons is because of pay, we need to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, we agree with the pay increase. We've already drafted the increase in pay. We just have to present it to the board. So we will see now if our goal was to do it for November. We'll see if time allows us to get it done for May.
Thank you, Nadine. Great work.
Yeah, that's already in the works, and just what I'm hearing, commissioners, I don't know where the money's going to come from. Let's just double all of them, make it 400 across the board, double all of them, and maybe that'll help. Commissioner Ellis.
Chair, thank you so much, Mr.
That will mean, though, not funding some things that have been funded in the approved budget.
Well, that shouldn't, because we had $80 million in underruns, and we had over $100 million that we did not expect to receive. And we will continue to see that because of COVID. We have a lot of workers who are teleworking. They're not using the water, gas, and light. And so we have a lot of extra money. It shouldn't cause a dent in that money at all.
I don't disagree with that, but we want to talk about the Grady request as well today.
We can if you ask us
to.
to.
I mean, everything has a price tag. Thank you, Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I do think it's important, when we're nomenclature and definition is important. I think we've been bantering around the term volunteer and this sort of stuff, but I think categorizing this stuff as volunteer not paid, what those specific positions are, where we're seeking them, how many and where, daily workers, I think that is important to clarify which one are those, and those that are working for more than one day. And I also think this issue of how we are asking these folks to apply and what role we're asking the cities to do. I mean, if the preference from our elections would be to have this come through a common repository, I think it would be maybe want to ask the cities to direct people to do that versus have their clerks accumulate this information. because I think I saw one of the cities where that's what they were doing. They were publicizing how to go access our site and apply. And if that's the most efficient way for things to be done, then possibly that's the way to go versus trying to ask their clerks to accumulate duplicative information that somebody ultimately may have to enter in separately anyway. In terms of, it would be helpful, I think, to get some information about how many people have actually applied online and how we are responding back to these people and where they came from and all that sort of stuff. Because I've heard from people that have said, hey, I went in, I did the online stuff, and I've gotten no reply at all. I did it several weeks ago or whenever it came live. So, our responsiveness to those folks. I don't necessarily agree with the comments that have been made about pay. I'll remind folks that we run a court system that's largely based on people, serving on jury duty for $25 a day. And we've had a number of folks that have raised their hand that, they do recognize this for the daily workers, people working on election days. This has been a historic process and historic thing that's taken place really all across the country and in this county, that people, in many cases, were doing this purely on a voluntary basis. So I'm not sure that needs to be revisited to any great extent in terms of the pay for the daily workers. I'd be more interested in knowing kind of like how many folks we've actually got that have applied to do the sort of the daily election day stuff. Because I seem to recall when we went through the last cycle, even though we had a large number of sites, that we had sort of a plethora of election day workers in many of these roles. There might have been a few where we might have maybe poll managers or some stuff like that where, we had, some harder time getting some folks, but it seems like with sort of the average sort of just election day workers that we were generally overloaded with them. So I'm not really sure that, applying more pay there makes sense. On the site, I'm interested in seeing, like on our site, as I understand it, I don't think that for the class of workers who we're classifying as working more than one day, that we're, I guess, generally sourcing these folks through a staffing company. Is there an ability for people to apply for those positions through our site? And if not, can it be set up? So that question, and what is the most preferred way for the cities to advocate and solicit election day workers are really my two questions.
Okay, I'm sorry, Patrick, are you about to speak? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. So, Commissioner Ellis, I think for the cities who have identified people that are interested in working for election day polling positions, I think the best way is to direct them to the website, to the application for poll workers.
Okay.
They can fill out the application, go into the system. And your second question, if you could repeat it, please, sir.
My second question is for the folks that are working more than one day, i.e. the folks that we are sourcing through, through staffing companies, which maybe we're considering sourcing through other means. Is there an ability for people to apply for those roles through our website?
So I think we would have to kind of coordinate and see what our options were through external affairs, along with working through that respective agency to see the manner in which they do their recruiting and onboarding. So I think we can definitely.
Patrick, may I just weigh in and say that Commissioner Ellis, we are working on that now. So I expect by within the next few days, we will have that information updated, and we will make sure that everyone on this call receives that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Ellis and Mr. Eskridge for that recommendation of streamlining the volunteer recruitment and directing people to the website. to avoid any appearance or perception of cherry picking people to volunteer in this election, which has already been noted will be under extremely high scrutiny. And so I see a question in the chat box from Commissioner Hausman, and I have the same question. And I'm hopeful that the response is going to be, these are going to be full-time employees, but around how are we training and recruiting people for the, the tabulation, vote tabulation, as well as absentee ballot processing. This issue or this part of the election process is extremely political, has been extremely controversial, and has been, I mean, there's a number of things I could say about it. So knowing that and knowing the level of scrutiny that is going to be on this election and every election moving forward in Fulton County, what is the county's plan to staff those positions? Because again, avoiding the appearance of cherry picking from different cities across this county around maybe having people be able to pick that is the role they want to play. Like we all know that what we're experiencing in this country at this time. And so how will those positions be filled? And my hope is that this is not just something that people can volunteer for without any level of full-time commitment or something that we're paying close attention to these types of positions. Again, given the level of scrutiny, given the fact that there's bills being filed across this country to allow state legislatures to reject election results. I mean, we all know where this is going, the ability for the election board to come in and all of those other things and challenges that are in Senate Bill 202. So that's my question.
Yes, ma'am. So I think in recruitment of those positions that you all are concerned as far as those long-term positions that are actually staff positions within the department to assist in the operations of the department. Those positions will be recruited as if a normal employee, anyone that would be interested in applying with a job with a certain organization and going through that application process, the vetting process, aligning their skills to the job descriptions and expectations of that role. And we will, again, utilize the staffing plan, which will be a culmination of temporary agencies along with working with our HR department to, again, fill those positions. So it's a normal process. So those that are interested in working with the department, like any other position or job with any other agency, it would be the same kind of process. Again, what we are asking or the request to work with the mayors, being that, again, we have an overall, we are responsible for providing poll officials to the county. The, I guess, ask and request with partnering with the cities are typically those that are in your specific locale may express interest to you, and that same interest they express to you may not reach to the staff here. So in cooperation to you all receiving those interests on your end to then funnel them and direct them to the staff so that we can then do the overall process to get them assigned.
So when you say funnel them and direct them to the staff, are you talking about through the website, through that link? Or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Basically sharing with them that link, and that's going to notify staff of their interest, and then we can coordinate with staff regarding where we are with numbers and things of that nature. Okay, I like the coordinated collaborative approach. Just for clarification, when you say the positions will be staff positions within the department, so will the vote tabulation and absentee ballot processing, are any of those positions on the flyer going to be used for that process? Or is it the process that you just explained where people will apply for a job, right? Apply with the department for a position and go through the application process and all of that?
So the absentee processing is, again, that we have a absentee division. And so those that work through the division. No, those are not the flyer. Those are, again, long-term positions that will require to work more than one day to complete that, the time period that absentee begins and ends. So no, ma'am, those are not included. What's included, again, are the positions for the election day precinct. So when people go out to vote, and those positions that process their create their voter cards, direct them to machineries, the voting machines, and et cetera. So that is what's on the flyer. That is what we are asking the cities to direct their interest individuals to the website to fill out to be a poll official for election day.
Great, and sensitivity and interest in these absentee ballot processing and vote tabulation positions. So will those opening positions be made available to all Fulton County cities and to the public at large? So I know that's a different process. It's not on the flyer, and it's basically, I'm not sure if it's where you post your job openings on the county's website or how you advertise those openings, so that we can make sure that people across that process represents diversity within this county.
Right, we will ask
Yes.
communications to revise the flyer to make it more clear about what positions are volunteer, what positions are poll election day, advanced voting, and working within the department itself. We will put that, like Jessica said, on the website so they can apply for all those positions. But just keep in mind that when anybody in those positions, that's what the election code allows for poll watchers to be at tabulation, poll watchers to be in LNA. So we can't completely control who has these positions. We want to make sure they sign an oath, they're following all the election codes, but that's why there's poll watchers in place and tabulation watchers in place to make sure all those things are done accurately. So we will never be able to completely control the people in those positions. We just make sure they're going to follow everything as per procedure.
Correct, and just making sure that we're doing everything to make sure that the voting is a fair process and that every vote is counted, and that we're putting safeguards in to, address those things that could potentially come up. The county did a great job in the, it was a general election. We had some challenges in the primary last year, but there was absolutely an improvement. But, we all know where things can insert themselves, and you're right, there's no way to 100% control them, but there's definitely a way to prepare and plan and put processes in place that should help prevent, discourage, deter any of those types of activities that could potentially come into this and politicize our elections. We want to make sure every vote counts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Motley Broom.
Since we've started this meeting, I've had the opportunity to check Target's website, where they are paying $15 an hour to start. And I can actually go over and be a cart attendant in the great city of East Point at the Target at the marketplace. The entire country is going to be watching what Fulton County does. We put our money where we value things. And if we are not valuing the efforts of the people who are administering these elections at a greater rate than a front of store cart attendant at Target, there is something wrong here. And so I understand that jury service is also vastly underpaid, and I would advocate that people are compensated for that time too, because other than military service, there is no other more important duty that people undertake. But at the same time, you can get arrested if you don't show up for jury service. I recognize that that is not always the outcome, but there is that threat. And so if we want to incentivize people who are going to be qualified, prepared, and ready to undertake this very, very important duty that is going to be before us this year, we need to make sure that we value them more than someone who is going to be making sure that you get a cart at Target. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mayor Motley Broom. Boy, you know, you are just speaking my language today. What I'm going to say is, I think the word volunteer is really being used loosely. And unfortunately, it's being used in a manner that seems to be disqualifying and disenfranchising people from getting paid. If we're going to actually have people volunteer, then let them volunteer, because the definition of a volunteer is described as an unpaid activity where someone gives their time to help perform a task or a job freely. So these are actual positions. These people actually have to be placed into these positions, and they have a pay. They need to get paid. These may be temporary, but they're still positions. And we have to remember, everyone in America is experiencing the impacts of inflation, and that includes those who are volunteering. So we need to look at the pay. And I agree with Mayor Motley Broom. If the pay hasn't changed for those who are doing jury duty, we need to check that as well. And we just really need to start thinking about being more supportive to our volunteers. I think you will start seeing the same type of resignation you're experiencing in your organizations if we don't. It's hard enough, I know, as a commissioner, to get people to be on boards. And I thought that would be one of the things that people would love to do, that they would be jumping at the chance and the opportunity to do. But it's not there. So, you know, we definitely need to incentivize, and we need to incentivize this correctly. We have been conditioned in government to have a poverty mentality. And what we've seen through COVID is quite different from that. We have seen a lot more revenue come in, people buying homes like crazy during the pandemic. And so I would urge my colleagues to rethink this, and we need to review this pay and do something about it. We are Fulton County, and we are the leaders. Thank you.
Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Thank you, Chairman Pitts. And I think this will be my last time. I definitely wanted to, I got a little distracted by the chat, the questions coming in through the chat when I was talking about the issue of a fair election and making sure every vote is counted and not cherry picking and avoiding that perception. But Mayor Motley Broom is making a case for equity and fairness and equal pay. And I absolutely have to be on the record supporting that position. Fulton County has a lot of opportunity when it comes to equity and doing the right thing. And what Fulton County does not lack is resources. And so as Mayor Motley Broom indicated, you put your money on those things that you value. And if this county doesn't value a fair and accurate election to count every vote and understanding the heightened need for that, and also the importance of that, it is not a question of whether or not the county has the money, whether or not the county is able to do it. The question is, will the county do it? And I know that takes a vote of the commission, the commissioner. So I'm hopeful, and that vote will tell us, the people of this county, where commissioners stand as it relates to voting elections and making sure we have fair and accurate elections and valuing that, because money is not an issue for Fulton County. Commissioner Hall mentioned hundreds of millions of dollars in reserves and other funds that are available, and this clearly is not going to cost that. And so I look forward to the upcoming meeting before the May election where the vote will be cast, I hope. And hopefully there will be a vote by the majority of the commissioners valuing the people who will be participating in ensuring, making and working to ensure that we have a fair, accurate election where every vote is counted.
Questions? Other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. The next subject is we're in that period post the census where each county must, with their municipalities, recalibrate and resubmit a local option sales tax agreement. And we've been working with the county attorney and Sue Joe. If you have not met her yet, I think most of you have or will soon, but she's going to lead this discussion on what the statute requires. Sue, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dick. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as Dick mentioned, we are now in that second year following the 2020 decennial census. So it's now time to renegotiate distribution of the proceeds from our local option sales tax. So we prepared the first slide to set forth the general timeline that's provided in the statute so that we know what dates we need to be aware of going into this year. Before July 1st of this year, we need to commence the renegotiation process. The call of the commencement will be done by the county, and we will also be notifying the Georgia Department of Revenue at that time. That's by June 30th. 60 days from the date that we begin renegotiations is the time period that we have in order to voluntarily renegotiate the distributions. If we cannot reach a mutual agreement by the 60-day mark, that dispute is then submitted to non-binding mediation or some form of alternative dispute resolution that we will decide on as a group. If we are not able to utilize that voluntary mediation process to reach an agreement in time to submit a certificate to the state by December 30th, the consequences are pretty dire. All of us will lose the authority to levy that tax, and it will require a new referendum election before we can levy the tax again. If we are able to reach an agreement, then the new distribution percentages will be collected and become effective either on January 1st of the following year or on the first day of the second calendar month after we sign the certificate. So based on this timeline set forth in the statute, the county has roughed out a practical plan of action that we wanted to share with all of you for planning purposes. We think that this is kind of a good timeline to meet all of our statutory deadlines and also to gather the information that will be the most useful as we enter the renegotiations. Our plan is to spend February through May of this year gathering the service delivery data that will be pertinent to the criteria set forth in the statute that will inform our renegotiations. And in the past, at the last decennial census, Fulton County did engage a consultant to help analyze the data, which we thought was helpful. And we are considering doing so again. To the extent that any of the cities, our esteemed cities, would like to join us in engaging a joint consultant, we invite you to let us know about that interest so that we can consider that as an option going forward into the renegotiations. By June 15th, when our BOC will have its recess meeting, we anticipate that our Board of Commissioners will approve notification letters to the State Revenue Commissioner and to all of the cities to indicate that we have commenced renegotiations. And then presuming that the notification of commencement did occur on June 30th, we would utilize the 60-day window for negotiations between July 1st and August 29th to attempt a voluntary negotiation. If that is unsuccessful, as of August 30th, we would submit our disputes to the alternative dispute resolution method of our choosing. That would be one of the things we would discuss in the initial renegotiation period. It's important to keep in mind that the alternative dispute resolution is non-binding, and the old process of baseball arbitration, wherein the Superior Court would make the ultimate decision if we are unable to agree no longer exists in the current statute. So it's really up to the county and the cities to reach a voluntary distribution or else risk losing the ability to levy the tax altogether. Assuming we are successful, as we hope to be, in reaching a renegotiated distribution agreement, we would submit that agreement to the state revenue commissioner by December 30th, and then proceed to receive distributions according to that schedule as of January 1st of 2023.
Questions?
Thank you very much. Questions, Mayor Bodie? Questions or comments, Mayor Bodie? Mr. Mayor?
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I got caught up on the phone. Hold on, Chairman. It was very interesting listening to the timeline and everything on that. Of course, not much has changed, but this will be my third negotiations on the lost. And I would ask everybody to look back on history on our last one. We took it down to the very, very last minute. And we actually even had a couple of the mayors that had to make a trip down to the revenue department and sign those things before 5 o'clock on a Thursday. And that's how close this came to sunset. And I don't know what part of y'all's budget that lost make up, but it's a tremendous part of ours. So, you know, let's look back and let's start from day one with the sense of urgency that this thing carries as far as revenue goes. And there was a lot of confusion, a lot of, you know, it finally ended up, and of course, Mayor Dickens, this is no reflection on you, but over the last two negotiations, the other one was with Mayor Campbell. They went to the last minute, and then of course, obviously the one I'm talking about, it was Mayor Reed, you know, where they failed to sign off on it. And I could not believe that, you know, that much revenue is going to be lost by them. But, you know, we had a couple of cities that, based on the last population, that lost revenue. Well, the other cities joined in, with the exception of Atlanta, and we were a donor city. You know, we were getting more funds, so we actually made up a fund to take care of the other two cities to bring them back to where they were, not to give them more money, but so that over the next 10 years they could survive and not take a tremendous cut. And so we were all acting in good faith. And I hope that's what these negotiations will be about, is acting on good faith and thinking about how it does affect your neighbor as well as affects, you know, ourselves on it. So I just wanted to throw that in there and you know, right up front so that we get off on a good foot and not a bad foot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that historical perspective. Mayor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly want to thank the county attorney for sharing that background and that information. But my conversation is really very similar to Mayor Bodie's. I am very hopeful and prayerful that we can get through this process without being disrespectful, but also understanding that we all serve constituents who depend on us as leaders. This is not to embolden or empower any one city. This is about each and every city that's in the county. So as I said, I am very hopeful and certainly looking forward to the new mayors that will be a part of this conversation, because I do remember the last one, and it was very contentious, and it was a lot of disrespect. And I think that we've got to get past that. We're seeing the climate of incivility around the nation. Let's not be a party to that. So I'm very, very, very hopeful again that we will be able to get through this. We know that the county will have a lot to say, you know, now that the county is almost totally municipalized. You know, we've got to make sure that we are fair throughout this process. So that's all I wanted to share. And let us remember, God is watching us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Avery?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add in, and again, I won't ditto and repeat what Mayor Williams and Mayor Bodie, but I was actually one of the recipients of some of the nasty, harsh language that was actually from several of the mayors, because I took a stand that I'm going to end up inquiring about again this year. And the stand had to deal with services, in this case, that the county renders mainly to the cities of the cities of the South Fulton, from animal control to senior service to libraries. And my position was at that time, our city manager, who was a CPA, we had assessed that based on the county's negotiation. And for the record, I'm not here to negotiate for the county. You've got seven elected officials can do that. But the thing that I want to make sure we keep those mayors in South Fulton in particular, and Atlanta in this case, because animal control, I understand, is done in Atlanta as well. So one of the things I want to make sure is that whatever the new negotiated rate, it came down in this case where either the rate we came up to a negotiated rate where the cities of South Fulton in particular would have to drop. In my case, it would have been $20 million worth of services that Fulton County provides for the city of Fairbanks and the other cities. But in this case, I wanted to make sure that our negotiated rate, whatever that it turns out to be, for Fulton County and the other cities, it actually will not drop those services back in the laps of the cities. Because again, that's a blessing in this case for my citizens, in this case, to get library, animal control, the whole 9 yards. So that was actually the genesis of a lot of the I guess in this case, the negotiated problems and conflict we had. Again, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say what everybody else is actually already knows. Mayor Dickens, I was actually very proud that you're here. Normally, the city of Atlanta leads the charge in these negotiations. They did, at least in the last one. And a lot of us are going to follow the tone that you set unless we find out we're in the situation we're in at the 11th hour. So I'm looking forward to a new beginning as it relates to the capital city of our state, of our county, actually leading the negotiations, in this case, in a very positive and professional manner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Motley Broom.
Well, I was not here 10 years ago for these negotiations, but I wanted to say that I look forward to a spirit of collaboration amongst our cities and want to make sure that we are the leader for the entire state in this. We have the opportunity to show everyone how it's done. And if we continue our conversations, if we keep on pushing through, even when it's difficult, I'm confident that the leaders on this call and everyone who will be involved will reach a resolution that is amenable to everyone. I think we have that possibility, and I'm certainly committed to working in that spirit and in that regard. And I know that the colleagues that I've spoken with about this issue are committed to the same.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioner Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not here 10 years ago either, but in the last 8 years and throughout our mayor's meeting, I've noticed that the city of Atlanta has not been involved. And so I'm very thankful that we have Mayor Dickens here today. And I'm thankful for his participation. And so I'm very glad to see that. And I look forward to us negotiating something that makes sense for everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Holliday.
Thank you, Chairman. And I too want to echo the commitment to collaborate to get this done and work together. I am also happy to see Mayor Andre Dickens attending the meetings, and not just this one. He's been attending since he's been elected. And when I spoke with him, he indicated he supports the region and that he would show up and be present. And so I want to say thank you, Mayor, for that. Thank you for being a man of your word and really not just saying you want to collaborate, but showing up and being present. There's power in showing up, and actions speak louder than words. When we looked at the timeline that was shared, January through May is to gather service delivery data. I think it would be helpful if, as we look at our meetings moving forward from February to May, that we get presentations on those services that the county is delivering to other cities like animal control, like ambulance services. I mean, there are a number of those services where we have some concerns and have raised them amongst ourselves and at some meetings, but we haven't started having them on the agenda to start talking about them, to make sure that, yes, if those services continue to be delivered by the county, and as Mayor Williams indicated, the county is pretty much municipalized. I think there's only 700 residents or thereabouts that live in unincorporated Fulton County. So service delivery, the quality of those services that are delivered is very important. And so I know moving forward, those will be the types of agenda items that we'll be requesting to be on the agenda from a South Fulton Municipal Association perspective, because we need to use this time to look at the services that are being delivered as well, not just the data, but addressing concerns around the quality of the service being delivered and addressing the concerns that continue to rise with some of those services that are being delivered.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Dickens.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I am just always excited to be a part of this call and this team of individuals in the county. I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves to work together with you all on these negotiations. I have no experience in this before. The previous mayors took this on and the council was not involved. So I ask for all of your support and, any kind of advice and a crash course that we can go through together. Rob and Dick and the commissioners just want to get together on that and, put our heads together to see where we're going with it. And let's start on that sooner rather than later so that we can have the full amount of time to work it through and make sure, everybody's included in the outcomes and the decisions that's made. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome. Are there other comments, questions? Other comments or questions? All right, if not.
I'm sorry.
Is that someone? Who is it?
Yes, that's Mayor Avery. I had one question for you. And at some point, I guess, at some point, I guess when Fulton County starts, I guess, to negotiate whatever the Board of Commissioners decide that, in this case, because there is a new city, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure how that affects the distribution this period. I'm sure it's going to have some form of effect. I guess at some point, and I was trying to think about is between the players that was actually here in case of Commissioner Pitts, Mayor Bodie and Mayor Rusty Paul. I was just thinking of the players that was here during the last negotiation. Not sure how that impacts us, but I'm sure it's going to have some kind of impact. And I guess my question ultimately will be, what will that impact do to Fulton County? Because I'm sure that's going to play a role as relates to how you negotiate those very concern that I had the last time, and that is services that's provided to South Fulton, City of Atlanta and South Fulton cities as it relates to the distribution amount you get and how it impacts those services that you provide. So I just want to make sure that I'm sure that's going to be a conversation piece among the Board of Commissioners at some point very soon. I guess you'll have to let us know how that impacts you, because that's going to probably play a major role in our negotiations as it relates to how we move forward. So just want to make sure I say that.
Commissioner Houseman.
Well, I was just going to remind you, I did hear a moment ago, someone mentioned the issue with Grady Hospital. And before we get off the call, after we finish this lost conversation, I think the mayor should be updated on that situation.
Mayor Paul.
Well, I appreciate the intentions of entering into these negotiations with a great deal of open-mindedness and collegiality, but there's nothing that engenders love and brotherhood like a discussion over money. And one of the things that this group I have figured out, negotiations involve talking, and we're really good at talking. So I'm looking forward to these negotiations, and we do have to keep in mind that we represent a very diverse, broad county. This county's changed a lot over the last 10 to 15 years. But we've got to go into go with the mindset. We're going to come out here with a solution that helps the most people in this county that we possibly can. And that's how I'm going to approach it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other questions or comments on this topic? Anything else? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Manager. We have time to talk about grading?
Yes, sir. I can give a brief update if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Mayors and of course commissioners heard this report from us this week. I think we're all familiar with the nursing shortage in the hospital systems, made really more acute by COVID, and generally this has resulted in this phenomenon of traveling nurses under contract, and the pay rates for those nurses have been in the range of $100 an hour paid to the nurse, $200 an hour paid to the provider. Largely, this has been offset by federal and state funds, either coming through CARES Act sources or ARPA. The Grady chairman and CEO met with the chairman and I last week to make us aware of the issue that they face and to maintain the nursing levels that they currently have through contract, and then to also increase pay of existing nursing staff. The estimate is on an annualized basis an incremental $60 to $80 million. I'm not sure, and we expressed this on the call, that any problem should be annualized at this point in the pandemic, and that it's defied probably every projection that any of us or anyone has attempted to do. So that being said, I think the first step that we asked for is a tighter definition of the problem, at least in terms of time, meaning 3 months rather than 12 months. We'll also ask for any contingencies that Grady has itself, i.e. reserves, staffing, offset perhaps by other line of business expenses that they're investing in. So defining this financially is still work to be done. I think the second most logical step, as we discussed it with our board, and also this was discussed on the call with the CAB as well, when we had this phone call, and I think the wisdom given by both the CEO of DeKalb and the chairman was to develop a more cohesive strategy to approach the state for funding, because the state, as I mentioned, was one of the sources and was the source of this funding for the most recent past, and they have ceased that funding. So we need to determine the reason for that, and of course, the appeal to reinstate at some level. And I think the last concern that probably needs to be thought through pretty thoroughly is the unintended consequences of actions that really are attempting to address a labor market anomaly, meaning nursing pay, because if done vis-a-vis a across the board increase, you can imagine that compression of salaries between nurses, doctors, and other staff will not survive, and it will not survive by the consequence of all other salaries being raised, which of course will increase significantly overall hospital level costs. So that is also another aspect of this to be dealt with. But in the the net of it all, it's not an insignificant, unanticipated expense, and it is one that generally our citizens and DeKalb citizens take advantage of. Quoted in the call is about a 55% Fulton, 45% DeKalb split in terms of that. They also do serve other citizens, and we asked that question. About 10% of their patient admissions do come from other places in the state, and I think that's an important part as we go back to the state, because it clearly is a regional asset and even a state level asset due to its level 1 trauma center designation, but then also some of the other services like the stroke center that's been brought online. So there's a lot of things in play, but that's the summary, I think, Mr. Chairman, as far as we know it, unless I've left something out from you, what you recall.
Any questions? It's approaching noon, but we'll take questions. Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Yes, thank you for that update. I just have a question, and I know it can't be answered today. Well, it can be answered today. The information won't be available today, but is data kept by the city level for patients? So not to get into any HIPAA information, but just to know, based upon the number of patients that were served by Grady, what did they indicate as their city of residence? Is there any data on that?
I'm sure that they have patient data on that, but we'll have to ask for a distribution of that data by city.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, other questions or comments, observations, thoughts? Okay, it's about noon. Any other matters that come before us today? All right, nothing else has come before us today, then we are adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and Mr. Mayor of Atlanta, welcome. Thank you, we are adjourned. We on?